Welcome back to RSAC 2026 in San Francisco. I'm Christophe, Bertrand, Principal Analyst with theCUBE Research. I am joined for this segment by two wonderful ladies, the yin and the yang of Commvault. We have Vidya Shankaran, your field CTO for security, so very much apropos for this, this event, but we'll talk about that.
Sure.
And Anna Griffin, CMO. But it's Chief Market Officer, so what does that mean?
That is correct, Chief Market Officer. It's a little different than Chief Marketing Officer. I think it's important in any company in a strategic position and on the make to make sure that they're focusing on the market and not the ing, which is all the activities that take a strategic idea to market. So at Commvault, we're very much focused on the market and the role that not only we play, but where it's going and how it's going to benefit and our customers to be more competitive.
Right, exactly, and also the partners. We talked to some of your partners earlier today, so definitely a very important topic. So, you know, I look at Commvault, I've known Commvault for many years, I think probably over 23 years or so, on the vendor side and then on the analyst side for the past few years, and I can see that starting in, surprisingly, 2019, when Sanjay Marshandani came on board as President and CEO, things changed. Actually, they changed within 6 months. That was a piece I wrote at the time for ESG. And to me, we're in phase 4 of the transformation of Commvault. Phase 1 was Sanjay coming on board. Phase 2 was when you really started getting serious about the cloud. And what that means is you you changed your portfolio, you evolved the portfolio, and you started providing services in the cloud with a product that I will not rename the brand because I didn't like it, but you changed it, which is great, which brings me to the third phase, which is you coming on board as you mentioned, Chief Market Officer. And I think that's finally, Commvault waking up. Really making a lot of changes, and I really mean it. I've told you so in the past, but the truth is, we went from a sort of shy, almost defensive company publicly that man finally came out of its shell. Loved the videos, loved also the re-architecting and the re-engineering of the whole marketing process, but in a context of understanding all the facets of marketing, which changes the dynamic. And then phase 4, I think, is maybe when we look back, something that may have started a year ago, 2 years ago, maybe it's starting today. It's this combination of cyber resiliency meets AI. We're no longer in backup and recovery. This is a thing of the past. Which brings me to this question to both of you. I'll start with you, Anna, which is, you know, why are you relevant now to customers? What has changed? Why is Commvault so important?
Yeah, well, you know, everyone is chasing AI. It only takes half a second in RSA to see AI. And you know, the biggest, it's on everyone's agenda, clearly, but the biggest barrier to AI success isn't the technology, it's the risk. And you know, Commvault and our platform has never been better positioned to help with risk. So when you think about risk, you think about data, you know, spread, you know, absolutely any and everywhere. You think about the AI attack surface getting larger and running at an automated pace. You think of compliance and regulatory requirements around this new world, and you also think about just identity, like who is touching the data? You know, what access do they have? Humans, agents, automated workflows. It's a very risky proposition, and what we see happening is in the race for AI, a lot of deployments are stalled. Right. People may be getting there fast, but they're getting there dangerously, and that ability to be able to de-risk and go back to the structure of your data and understanding it and how to make it safe and able to feed the systems is critical.
Right, yeah, there's no AI without data, and data better be governed and protected and resilient. So, Vidya, what I'd like to do is ask you the same question, but with a slight twist. Why is Commvault so important now, but is it data protection for AI or AI for data protection?
That's a fantastic phrasing, I would say. It's both, because there are two sides of the same coin. When it comes to resilience for AI, that's exactly to Anna's point. It is definitely fraught with risk. That's a large surface area of attack by malicious actors. So what that essentially means is more and more businesses, as they continue to rely on AI for their decision-making processes, Would you leave it out there in the open? Definitely not. That also means that if that entire AI stack is inaccessible to the business, what does that mean for the business?
Right.
So definitely resilience for AI is one of the key core pillars within Commvault. We want to make sure that customers are protecting every layer of that AI stack, starting from the source data to Anna's point, building up all the way up to the vector databases, the analytics layer. Those are such integral parts of that AI stack that needs to be protected.
Right.
On the flip side, there's also the AI for resilience piece. You know, like you rightly mentioned, it's the other side of the same coin, and that's where responsible AI comes in. From within Commvault, the way we adopt and embed AI within our framework has been definitely more towards keeping human in the loop with a responsible AI stance.
Right, and you brought up resilience multiple times, which brings me to ResOps, and I'd like to talk to you about that. You introduced this concept at your event Shift, I think it was in New York, and to me it makes so much sense. Actually, I've just talked to another organization that is bringing up this notion of operational resilience in the context of security centers as well, operations center. So tell us more about this. Why did you introduce it, and why is it relevant to our viewers? Why should they care about it more than the traditional ways of approaching resilience?
Yeah, you know, I think the industry for a long time has been siloed, and while we get incrementally better, that idea of bringing people and processes, but also the technology together. It reminds me so much of, I spent a little time in my earlier career in DevOps, and you know, you think of going from a very waterfall process, and I think a lot of security and recovery was, okay, and then at the very end, we will now do the recovery. And when you can bring resilience and operations together, you can keep things the same way you do in DevOps. You keep it continuous. Right. You take backups that had traditionally been static, if you will, and you make them very active. And so you're constantly, you know, looking at what data you have, how it's classified, who has access, you know, how is it protected. Then you're constantly scanning and you know, looking at threats and changes, right, you know, in that policy assignment or access, and then you're recovering constantly, micro recoveries, not right, just recovering at, you know, at the very end. So then you're feeding back your data safely into into systems where you're not going to have this big problem at the end of a waterfall. Right. Like process.
And let's talk about that. And me, actually, Vidya, I'd like to ask you, how do you operationalize this? Because this is, you know, surgical recoveries potentially, but really there's a broader conversation here.
100%.
So how do you make ResOps something that is embedded in operations?
That's a fantastic point there, because again, back to Anna's comment, right? Because this is definitely the coming together of the people, process, and technology elements of it. And a lot of times what happens is there are these inherent fractures within organizations, and this serves as a driving catalyst to bring those, I would say, fractured components together to think of the cyber resilience as a business problem. It's not a technology problem alone. So solving for the processes that needs to be embedded, the way you're going to structure, plan for it ahead of time, make sure that you're weaving in the best practice recommendations all the way from the top to the bottom, which includes not just the architecture elements, but also planning, preparation, and testing to build the muscle memory around all of that. That is where ResOps has a significant role to play.
Right, so let's talk about how this is truly a market influencing move from your part. As I said, Commvault is not the shy company it used to be. You're doing other things. I mean, obviously ResOps is a big deal, but Anna, you've also made some interesting announcements around Time and CISO of the Year. So what message are you really trying to convey to the market?
Yeah, I love this program, and I've always loved the brand Time. They, particularly the past couple of years, talk about a brand that's been able to reinvent itself and bring itself back into cultural zeitgeist. And what I love is they've been doing a lot of that through recognizing, people and trends. They have their Time 100 list, and they have their Time technology and data list of the top 50 leaders. And working with Time, we were discussing why not, the CISO. So we are going to make the 51st person on their list this year a CISO. And why? Because it is a job that is often thankless and recognized for the actual contribution that they make to a business. So many other functions get the credit for strategic advantage and advancement and innovation. But man, keeping your business up and running and safe and guarded, and that is a competitive advantage, just as much as a new technology innovation is a competitive advantage. And it's time they get a little bit of recognition they deserve.
Oh, absolutely, and I would argue the CISO is probably the second most important person after the CEO. I mean, maybe in competition the CFO, TBD. I'm sure CISOs would agree with that. Well, let's talk a little bit, Vidya, about your partnerships and Microsoft. While we spoke with NetApp earlier today, you also, I'm looking at the list, CrowdStrike, Okta, CloudSec, I mean, the list of logos is very long, so tell me more about the partnerships.
The partnerships are definitely, I would say, our secret sauce. Not so secret, but still a secret sauce, because that's the strength of what the customers benefit from as they consume Commvault as a solution. Because it's the strength of the ecosystem partnership that truly bodes well for them from a 360-degree visibility point of view or contextualization of alerts and notifications. Because the reason why we are actively integrating with the ecosystem players, especially the large players, primarily because when you look at the ground reality of how teams function, especially on the SecOps side of the house, alert fatigue is a real risk. It's a real concern. Because what happens over time is you tend to kind of gloss over some alerts. You're like, okay, this is a plain vanilla one. But that is exactly what the malicious actor is hoping you would do. Because as resources slim down, you are running out of more hands and legs to help you with scaling of those operations. Those partnerships definitely help us with the contextualization.
So is the play to be the platform at the center of this sort of connective tissue?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I couldn't have said it better myself. That's wonderful.
I'll call it the system of record for resilience. You know, in any moment, in any era of innovation or movement, a system of record always comes to the rise, and it's always an answer to a very fragmented solution set that forces, the rise of ERP, the rise of CRM, because too many fragmented solutions force we need one solid view. So that is part of the strength of a platform, but we are at an inflection point with AI that you're going to have a system of record for resilience.
Right, so could you then maybe explain how the Satori component comes into play in this context? Because that was definitely a big move. Okay.
Yeah, Satori is definitely a huge complementary capability that I'm thankful that we actually went that direction, because when you look at the risk exposure that organizations have, especially from a structured and unstructured data point of view, a lot of times structured data does not really get the right kind of attention. And that is where Satori has been able to help plug that gap, because for unstructured data, we have risk analysis module from within Commvault's capabilities. That's something that we've had for a long time. But for unstructured, where you have Satori-like capabilities, not just complementing us, but also providing the layer of protection against AI prompts that could potentially expose a whole world of information to a person who's trying to solicit data out of that LLM. I think that beautifully brings together some of the core capabilities, from data discovery to risk analysis to exposing what the customer does not know is actually out in the open. I think that strings it all together succinctly.
Right, and I think this is where the concept of operational resilience has become also very critical, right? So if we think about it, right, we went from backup recoveries, data management, to cyber resilience, to now cyber resilience in the age of AI, with AI being both an actor and a bad actor, a good actor, and an infrastructure you have to protect. So Anna, if you project yourself a year, 2 years, a few years ahead, where does operational resilience land? Is it becoming the standard, the norm, the standard to achieve? Is it just one more checkbox? What's your take on that?
No, I think it is the standard. It is the way we're going to keep the business continuous. Everything that we're discussing is not only capabilities, but they have to be automated capabilities, and they have to flow in a way that can hold operations together. So I believe with more automation, operational resilience it is the green light. You're going to have red lights and green lights, and you have to know when you can move forward and when you have to pause.
Yeah.
Yeah, no resilience, no business, right?
Right.
Exactly, and to add to what Anna just mentioned, right, and to also your point, it is definitely a standard, but it's a continuous standard because it's not a point in time. It's something that you're going to watch for continuously on a go-forward basis. It's not a slice in time, and that itself lends to the fact that an incident response plan or the very strategy is a living and breathing strategy. It doesn't stop just because you finished something yesterday. It's continuously iterative.
Yeah, I mean, I think very clearly operational resilience is the precursor and a prerequisite to enterprise resilience and just to be in business, as much as having good, clean data, resilient data is needed for AI to do anything with AI. Any closing thoughts for our viewers, Vidya?
Yeah, in fact, to your point on the clean, verified data, that's where we are seeing a massive industry-wide shift towards a more standardized nomenclature, which is mean time to clean recovery, because the focus is on the operative word, which is clean, and the more verified and trustworthy that data is, the better it is for the business to adopt and move forward with it.
And Anna, your closing thoughts.
Yeah, no, I'll leave you with a tagline from our booth that says, unified resilience hits harder. Now, we have a wrestling themed booth, so, but,
oh, yes.
but it's so true, like unified resilience. I know it sounds like a tagline, but you cannot do what we're talking about if you are managing 7 or 8 different platforms that have been stitched together with OEMs or strategic alliances. You'll never get to the speed and automation required to work in these systems in a way. Not to mention the cost and the sprawl and the operational headache. So unification, so important.
Absolutely, and I think it's a natural continuation of one of the themes of a couple of years ago, fight AI with AI, and I remember that from Shift. So, Vidya, Anna, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Christophe.
Thank you for having us.
And to our viewers, stay tuned with more coverage from RSAC 2026 in San Francisco.